I'm one of the first cord cutters, okay, years and years ago. I was paying $85 a month for cable. I had a decoder box that I built myself. I could get all the pay-per-views and a lot of the different scrambled channels, but it wasn't worth the $85 a month, 75, 85, whatever it was. It wasn't worth it. So I took the old antenna down that I had on the roof and I bought a new Radio Shack one. And I realized that I could get all the channels that I was watching, all the football games, all the baseball games, the news at night. So I called my cable company up and I canceled. I went to return the box, and they told me it wasn't the right box, and they were gonna. My father had done something, and then I told them my dad was dead, and they asked me for a death certificate. They changed their tune because they wanted to charge me for a box that uh, my father got rid of years before, but they wanted their money for it, and I don't know what happened to the box. But anyway, I gave him a death certificate for my father, and it solved everything, and I shut my cable off. So I went with the one of those dishes for a while, but that was expensive too. So I went back to the antenna, and I just you shift over what you watch, okay? But you got to watch the fact when you want to cut a cable, get rid of it. Uh, is your area are you able to receive television stations in your area? A lot of areas of the country were dying to get cable because they couldn't receive stations without a cable to their house. The regular antenna wouldn't cut it. And the signals they're using now are totally different. The televisions are different. And a lot of the experts will tell you there's no difference between a regular television antenna and an HD antenna. Well, there sort of is. The original television antennas had long elements, medium elements, and short elements. The long were for VHF low, mediums VHF high, and little tiny ones for UHF. So if you're in an area that only has UHF and you buy an HD antenna in that area, it's going to just have the short elements. You're not going to be paying for elements that don't do you any good. So there is a difference when you really know what you're doing, and you don't just blatantly say, well, yeah, the old antenna with all its elements will work for HD, but you got to be more specific. Okay, someone can go get an antenna like a rabbit ears. Just regular rabbit ears don't do very well with what's it would be ultra high frequency UHF. The UHF wants to see a loop, and they also got to be close to the station. So before you cut the cord, put your antenna up and see what you can get. And also, what you want to spend is 1 month of cable. 1 month of cable on your antenna system. Don't go with one of them $29 antennas. It could work really well for you too. The antenna that the guy advertises, we're out on a boat, make it look more difficult. When actually being out on a boat, there's nothing in between you and the transmitter, and you can get all the stations perfectly clear. Now, as far as digital, if you have a digital television, you'll either have the station or it'll be perfectly clear. You've got people running around on the internet saying, I bought this antenna and all the stations are super crystal clear. Well, that has nothing to do really with the antenna. That has to do with the way the signal is compared to an old television set. The old analog TV and the way they process the signal, that got shut off. But you got these knuckleheads running around, oh, the best antenna is this and that. Each situation has to do with location, okay? What one guy on the internet can get with a certain antenna, you might not get. That's why the guy out in the boat showing you great channels, okay? Perfect shot. He could say he's 30 miles out. Absolutely true. Perfect signal, and he gets all these channels. But are you in a boat? Or you got a mountain in front of you, or a hill, or a water tower, or a person's apartment complex in front of you? All right? That's why you have to check all this stuff out before you cut the cord. And cable is way overpriced now. My neighbors are paying over $200 a month, and that's basically basic. And that's ridiculous, okay? And I want to tell you the other thing, too. I don't know if you noticed, but every channel has J.J. Walker selling you life Medicare So all these little channels that they've added on over the years have the same commercial on every break. It's really annoying. Television isn't what it used to be. In some ways, it's so much better, but in some ways, they don't put the money into it. See, all the money is spread out between, let's say, 50 channels instead of 4 or the 3 networks. Okay, so now it's diluted. A person's idea, if it should get on, they only do 5 episodes, and then they want more from the guy, and then there's infighting, and then you lose that new idea actually dies, and somebody else sort of copies it. It's a dog eat dog scenario. Television, the actors, what they want, the strikes, the whole thing. It's nothing but a big pile of garbage. Okay, it's a mess. And telephone, over the years, it got deregulated, it got cheaper, you could do certain things you couldn't do before, and then cell phones came along, very expensive again, and then now the money has gone out of that. But cable television is just the opposite. All right, they keep giving you more commercials, the same commercial, and it's really annoying. Now I want to tell you what I went through. Like in New Jersey, Radio Shack antenna worked fine. Just before I left, I got the digital converter box, made every picture perfect. Then I moved to here, and everything was fine. But when I first got here, that's when they shut the old analogs off, and they went to digital. And all of a sudden, I couldn't get anything with just rabbit ears or one of my little antennas. So I bought this Winegard. It's for a camper. And I bought the click-on attachment for UHF. It's got a little thing that clicks on the bottom. Very good antenna. Bought it years ago when it was like $69. Now I believe it's over $100. But it had a problem. It received in 2 directions. Off the back, instead of giving me 21 ABC in Harrisburg, it was giving me a religious station from Vineland, New Jersey. And I put the click-on attachment to bring in one station, like I think it was PBS, and it came in. I fixed it. I got enough signal, it locked on all the time. But it had a problem with the receive in the back, off the back, getting that Vineland instead of ABC 27. So I bought this giant antenna, and I put it together up in the attic. And it worked great. Everything was fine up for 12 years. And then they repacked the stations. They lowered their power. And I went up to reposition the antenna, and all the elements were breaking off. All the plastic pieces that held the elements on the directors and the radiators just broke. They were, from sitting in the heat of the attic, the plastic dried out and got brittle. So I brought this baby back into service. I have that up there now. And the station in Vineland is gone. It's off that frequency. So I get all my stations sort of. Now I have on order a Juice amplifier, and I have a really large Winegard, which is HD antenna. It only has high VHF and UHF on it. Now they're working up to UHF. See, they're slowly working up the band. And the reason the television is so screwed up was when they assigned the frequencies for television, they used 3 different bands because that's what was left over from other services. Okay, so channels 2 through 7 are low frequency VHF, and they really travel far. So a lot of people could put a rotor on their antenna and get an antenna specifically good for VHF low, and they would get it. And they were way out in the middle of nowhere, but VHF signals really travel far. And the audio was just regular FM. The picture was AM. So the picture could have noise in it, but you could still follow the show with good audio. Now with digital, the audio is really good, but it could be there or not there if the signal gets low. Okay? The whole picture disappears. So in the old days, an old analog system could outperform a digital. You could actually get a signal in an area that the digital can't work. So that's what some people are finding. They're cutting the cord and realizing they're 70 miles from the nearest station. And they're up there, I used to tell them, I never had problems before. They don't understand the difference between digital and analog, and then the signal levels that they used to transmit was much higher than what they're transmitting now. And it's just so annoying. And then, you got people trying to cut the cord and they don't know what they're doing. You got other people that really don't know what they're doing. And I went reading because I wanted to see what my options were now that they've done a repack in my area. And I took that big antenna and it broke apart. I took it down and threw it out. And I'm using this Winegard. But the thing that I didn't realize was actually going to happen was every station is going to have the same commercial at night with J.J. Walker. Sometimes it's Tom Selleck with a reverse mortgage. It's almost all night long. It's Medicare and the plans, and the commercials are so jerky, And then you got the cash thing. If your car breaks down, the predatory loans, and the commercials they're worse than they used to be. I mean, we used to have bubble gum commercials, Dentyne commercials, toothpaste commercials, new car commercials, and you had all these different things, and it's all changed to down to the commercials for the dumbest of the dumb, thinking they're going to get something for nothing, and you're not. Okay, the world doesn't work like that. You can believe all you want, and that's what's killing cord cutting, is the channels you have they're just junk. Okay, now the three major networks are still put on some fairly good shows, but as you get older, television becomes something you really don't enjoy. And then you have like MeTV and Antenna TV. They're running all the old shows, and they're the ones you liked, and you're watching it going, this is really stupid. This is really stupid. And there was an episode of That Girl on it. It was really, really stupid. And you say, I actually watched this, And I think as you get older, your tastes change. And if you're older and frustrated with television, be very careful what you do. Like I said, put the antenna up first, or talk to someone in your area that has an antenna and see what kind of stations they're getting. You can get all the football and baseball games for free. But remember, the commercials on those things are really brutal, and there's commercials on the player's uniform. I put a television, during the COVID, I put the TV on, I put a baseball game on, and there was something on the pitcher's mound. They actually put a commercial on the pitcher's mound. Sort of like when they show you inside of the racing car, they have all commercials inside there. And that was against the law years ago. You couldn't have a real product like a Pepsi bottle or a Coca-Cola bottle in frame on a TV show. You always had to be fake. It had to be a fake cola, because that's advertising. But now you can do it. And the FCC has just let the rich people run wild with the radio waves. And the reason I'm buying the new antenna and the juice, I got the new antenna, I'm ordering this juice amplifier, is I'm building my own setup. In other words, a really good Winegard antenna that's big, and the juice amplifier, and that's to get me just PBS. PBS does work with this. Certain times of the day it cuts in and I need more signal on that one station, and that's what I'm up to. But I'm a cord cutter from way back, and a couple of my neighbors, they had antennas on top of their houses when they were younger, and then as they got older, they forgot about them. They're like, what do you mean an antenna on the roof? I said, remember years ago we had the antennas? They just stare at me like I was crazy. And I'm like, how do you not remember TV antennas? Because the wife never put the antenna up there. She just watched the television. It was up to the husband to climb up there and risk his life putting an antenna up. But I told him, I said, yeah, you get all the channels for free. And then of course they asked you, do you get HBO for free? I said, do you get HBO for free? No, they want me to pay for it. I said, well, that's an extra channel. That's an extra expense. Nobody gets that for free. Now, even with my TV decoder, I used to get all these different channels. But HBO and Cinemax were trapped at the pole. And the movie channel. So in other words, even if you built your own decoder, you couldn't get those channels. And they were, and after a while, the movies weren't being made for my age group. And the movies being made in the theater were terrible. They go right to cable or right to DVD there after a while. But you'd watch it and you go, this is terrible. This is just, and when you were a kid, a day out at the movies, you're with your friends, you're eating popcorn and candy, and it's not so bad if the movie's not that good. But as you get older, you become more cynical. You want something good for your money, and cable isn't giving you your money's worth. Now, if you're out in the middle of nowhere, like one of those guys, the nearest station's 70 miles away. I used to be able to get those stations. Yeah, used to, back on the old system. It's not going to change anything to keep talking about. I used to. I did this. I did that. It's gone. World has changed. It's moved forward. Wake up and smell the coffee. And I just wanted to what would you say, log in about the HD antennas. Yes, there are antennas specifically made for HD. They don't have the long elements on them. Some antennas might just have the UHF. So if you know what your signals are in your area, you can buy a really good UHF antenna with a lot of elements instead of a three-band antenna that only one part of it's actually working. Okay, I know all these guys that do videos on HD antennas and cutting the cord. They all say, "Oh, any antenna." Yeah, you are sort of right, but why would you have an antenna, a big antenna outside, with three different bands on it when you only need UHF? Okay, so if you buy HD antenna, they have different ones and then they're specifically made for UHF or UHF and high VHF. Okay, that's why you got to really understand what you're talking about. Now there is one guy, he does videos on the antennas, and he compares them, and he always starts off by saying there really is no HD antenna. Well, there really is an HD antenna. When you understand that if you're in an area that only has UHF, you're not going to buy one of these antennas that has the three bands. You're wasting your money. The antenna is bigger than it has to be. Instead of putting all the money into the type of antenna you need, you're buying something else. You're not going to be happy. But like I said, you got to do a lot of reading and stay away from the conferences, okay? Because there is blind leading the blind leading the blind. And I do like to read the conferences just so I can chuckle. They make me laugh because people don't understand how television works. They didn't understand how the old system worked, so now they're not going to understand the new system. And it's all about money, okay? Every time they eliminate one of those old bands in an area, they could sell those frequencies to somebody else. Now, I don't know if anybody's buying it, but that was the original idea. Was the FCC was changing to digital, and it is a good idea, but it's a little bit sneaky what they're pulling. You know, when they repack, and then you know, I lost stations here. They reduced the power. You know, the antenna I had wasn't cutting it. A lot of it is you have this really big antenna in the attic or outside. The amount of signal that goes from that antenna down a 100-foot lead or a 100-foot wire down, it gets attenuated in that wire. So if you put an antenna up at the amplifier up at the antenna, then it amplifies the signal and sends it down the wire, and it doesn't degrade as much. So you get more signal at the end of the wire. If you put the amplifier at the end of the wire by your television set, it doesn't work. Okay, it does very little for you, and that's why people put amplified antennas up. But they're subjected to water from rain. They're not that great. They're not that well made. Some of these things that are made, people open them up and say there was water in it. That's why it stopped working. I don't know if they think this stuff out or they just want it to last 3 years. But I put my antennas in the attic, and I know I'm going to lose signal because of that. So you just buy something a little bit more with a little bit more signal power, and that's why I'm going with a larger Winegard antenna with a Juice amplifier, and I'm going to call it quits at that point. Now, I did find in my area, I could turn the antenna around to Philadelphia, and I got a whole crap load of stations. But once you take out the ones that are Spanish, and you take out the ones that are religious, you're down to some real crap. Okay. Now, in my area, they just added True or Real, whatever the hell it's called, and we're going to get the Defy on one of the other channels. I have Defy right now, and it's pretty good. But a lot of the channels, the programming, old TV shows, after you go through them like once or twice or three times, like that '70s show, if you watch it for several years on a channel, you're going to go from the first episode to the last episode several times a year. And then that your favorite show is not going to be your favorite show anymore. And the same with Frasier. I've gone around through all the episodes several times. Monk, the detective, several times. So that's why I had to move my antenna. I needed some new programming. And what I got is right now with Defy, you can watch a full day of Counting Cars, the American Pickers, and you got to make sure you don't watch it too much, because then you go around, you see every episode, and then you have nothing left to watch. But I like Pickers and that on sort of in the background. I kind of sit there and think, and then what happens is that those commercials now with J.J. Walker and Tom Selleck and oh, don't forget Joe Namath. Oh, don't forget him. I think that's it. All right, that's it.